G'day boys and girls. So welcome back into the studio. What we're going to do today is a little bit different. So I'm going to shoot all these and then I'll start getting back into the reviews because I've got a few cool ones coming. Some that might be reminiscent of the Australian Defence Force rifle, the Styro AUG. I think it's an EF88. I got to double check that, but hopefully that'll be very soon because there's a new one coming out, I believe, with a Gen 8 in it. Also, we've got the RX-AKM. I am actually getting my hands on one because I want to do a review on one after all the crap I've heard. I was staying away from them and I was advising people to do so because of all the bad rep, but we'll see how we go. Now, before that all happens and I get into that, I'll do some quick, easy ones for you since I've had a bit of a break recently. I've had a family member go through a bit of stuff, so been a little preoccupied. Apologise for that. What we're going to do, I've gone and bought myself another MP7, so believe it or not, that's actually number 4 or 5 because I love them apparently. But the reason I've done it is for a few reasons. One, I want to get back into using the riot shield and whatnot. I've got a few ideas on that, stay tuned. However, the other one, which is definitely more relevant, is I'm going to do this video on the next 3 I'm planning. I'm going to be a sort of a introduction to Gel Ball, or the Gel Blaster Basics is what I'm going to call them. This will be episode 1, which is, okay, so you've just bought a blaster, now what do you need to do? And what do you need to know? Well, straightforward. So I've just bought this off of CQ Blasters locally, and we're going to go straight into it. Going to do a bit of a mini unboxing. I'm not going to go stupid with it because I'm not interested in becoming that kind of person. But let's have a look at what you actually get. So obviously most of the boxes that you'll get in Australia will be fairly plain. This is actually the most decoration I've seen on most of any that I've actually received. I believe the UMP you might get a bit more fancy boxing, but generally they're pretty plain box. Straightforward, flip up, lift it open. Now something you will notice here is after recent discussions with Queensland Police and whatnot, a lot of them putting information on here which are fairly basic stuff. A lot of this stuff I covered in the video I posted on Facebook, which is generic, so I'll just quickly read them out to you just so I have covered them. 1, product is Gel Ball Blaster model, only suitable for people over the age of 14 years. So recommended ages, fair enough. It's also on the manufacturer's box. Store it out of reach of children, makes sense. Child might pull the trigger and anything can happen, fair enough. Do not shoot humans or animals. Don't watch my other videos. Don't shoot animals, that's mean, and don't shoot a human unless they're in a game, prepared, that sort of thing, or know what's coming. That's just that's just basic knowledge and capability. Don't be silly. Don't go shooting pets, that's not really cool. Do not modify the product to increase its shooting energy. Yeah, okay. People modify them, but realistically with the gel ammo being soft, not really going to be able to go to a point where it can actually do any real damage. But at the end of the day, a lot of these things, you don't need to modify them. They're already doing pretty well on their own. Do not put gel ball into mouth. Now, you can actually safely eat them, so if they splatter and go in your mouth, don't worry. It's not going to be too big a deal. If you go eating a heap like what it's probably referencing, it's probably going to make you sick, but shouldn't be too bad. Do not use this product in public so as to not cause a panic. Now, any of my reviews have a warning on that one. Because of the semi-realistic look of them to people who don't know what they are, that's quite easy. If you go out in public with one of these, police are going to treat it like you got a real firearm and you could actually be charged with those sort of charges, so just don't do it. Simple as that. Let's get into it. So, we open it up. MP7. I like it. Alright. First things first, you get the actual blaster. Just grab it out. The moulding's a little bit annoying, but it's fairly straightforward. So, blank MP7, this is the new model. How do you tell? Mag charge there. Also have to lift the stock up. Ah, look at that spring retainer. Perfect. Alright, so it is fairly put together at this point. You do get your little foregrip with it. Now this one doesn't actually go on unless you take that off and then it slides on over, but that's pretty cool. Yep, sweet. If you want to look at more detail into these things and their capability, I do actually have a review of them. Check that out. I'll put a link in the description for those who can't find that. So I might just put that there. Just look pretty. Alright, the other things you're going to get now, this is more important stuff. So, a couple of things you will get, not that, that's something else, is obviously you will get at least one magazine in the box. Now, these MP7s are very small capacity magazines, they're known for it. They're a lot worse than the UMP 45. Pretty straightforward with that. Won't really go too far into it. However, that you also don't get in it. Wow, I'm being really unprofessional tonight. Anyway, you will get a battery. Now, most blasters tend to come with a 7.4 volt battery. This one actually comes with an 11.1 volt battery. It does say on the battery that it's 1800 milliamp hours. That's a complete lie. Do not believe that label. It's not really a quality brand. These batteries are fairly generic batteries. So that's not exactly true. But 11 volt battery with this one as standard. Normally they're 7.4s, so this one has a good fire rate. You do also get a pair of relatively cheap basic safety glasses. And these are, yeah, they're crap. But if you just bought one and you want to play, they're entirely adequate. They will do the job, and most fields will accept this sort of thing because that's what they're there for. Now, I don't actually think those are impact rated either. I can't see any markings on them. They'll be fine, and oh god, you look through them, they're actually, this is a terrible pair. So I'll put that down and out of the way for now. You can use them though to get you started, not a problem. The other things you get, you'll normally get a couple of random bits of attachments. So in this case, you get two little flash holders, one which is bright red, one which is black, so you can put on whichever one you prefer. If you put a red one on, can you take it in public? No. Still going to cause an issue, so don't think that that's going to save you in the public. It's not a legal requirement in Queensland to have a brightly coloured tip on a toy, so that doesn't actually make a lot of difference legally. It depends on what you want. Most shops I've seen, when they have them advertised on displays, they tend to have the red tips on them, so it's clear to passerby what they're selling as a toy. But game day, I can understand you don't do that. I don't run coloured ones when I'm playing the games. And this one does also come with iron sights, which go onto the top rail, so that's there. And that's pretty much everything that you get. So, normally you do also get some gels. Now, this one, for whatever reason, didn't have gels in it. That's cool. I've just pulled these out of my J10 ACR box. These are the original ones that I never used and I never used. Now, the reasons for that I'll get to shortly, but they're just in some basic packaging. I think these ones are, yep, they're blue. So yeah, I think there's about 500 to each bag, so you've got 2,500 gels there. Some of the older models, I don't think they do it too much recently because I haven't really seen it. They'll actually come with a small bottle with some fancy molding like a grenade shape or something, and it'll actually have already grown gels in them. Again, I'll get to those in just a bit. So that is the box. What's in the box? We now know what's in the box. Obviously, a lot of instructions and information, all in Chinese, so if you can read Chinese, good for you. The rest of us, oh well, we'll deal with it. Alright, so first things first we're going to get into is the batteries. So, first things we're going to get into after getting everything out of the box is we're going to get into the battery and have a quick chat and a quick look at that. Now, this is quite a small battery. It's designed to go in the front end of this blaster. Again, if you want to look more at the actual blaster itself, go check out that review. I'll go through all that with quite a bit of detail. It is an 11.1 volt battery, so but being quite small, it doesn't actually last all that long, so it will run out of charge relatively quickly if you're using the blaster a lot. Now, usually, with all of these blasters, to charge the battery, you get something like this, a really, really crappy USB to battery charging connection, just like that, where that would go in there. There's a USB charger there. And that's all you would get. Standard. Now, that'll work fine initially, but what I do recommend you do if you start getting more, you get into it, is get yourself a proper LiPo charger. Now, there are a few options you can get, and this is one I've prepared earlier. This is your B3 LiPo battery charger. 3 little indication lights to indicate each cell of charge. So in 11.1 volt battery, you've got 3 cells. In a 7.4, you'll only have 2. And it does have a connection just there, so that small one is for a 7.4 because you're only charging 2 cells. The big one for 11.1 volt battery. This will do you fine. So for these batteries, they'll run fine. It's not exactly an expensive piece of kit, but it'll help. And it also means you're not trying to run off a USB connection. I don't recommend plugging this into like an iPhone outlet plug and whatnot because, to be honest, it makes them heat up. They're just not designed for that sort of current. So I don't recommend using this, to be honest. Initially, sure. Otherwise, I would grab one of these because I have 2 of these and they run great. The other option you have going forward is to get a proper LiPo balance charger. Now, over the life of a lithium polymer battery, each cell will start dropping as you drain them and recharge them, and they'll be unequal. And that will actually cause the cells to shorten their lives. The balance charger makes sure that they all stay balanced at all point with equal current across them, extends their life, basically. It's to look after them. Not a requirement, definitely good for longevity. For these sort of batteries, I personally wouldn't care. But for the bigger, better airsoft or Turnigy or Nanotech batteries, I would definitely put a bit more care into them because they're actually worthwhile. So, the other thing with batteries I'm going to get onto is just the safety, or moreover, the danger with lithium polymer batteries. These things can be unstable if used incorrectly. So you might have heard stories in past of people in other hobbies with other things having batteries explode. A good example is that Samsung phone batteries for a while did it. Don't get me wrong, I don't know what kind of batteries are. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but the reason I'm getting onto it is one that people often use to scare people away from using vapes is that people have the batteries explode, when in reality there's a reason that those batteries exploded on those particular people. It's not the devices, they were perfectly safe, it's how they were storing their spare batteries. The reason is these things being, if the casing gets pierced, so there's actually several layers of wrapping on this, not just that outside grey and black that you can see there. There's actually multiple layers of wrapping of different material, and that's protecting the actual lithium polymer cells. If that gets pierced, it can be quite dangerous. In fact, these things, when fully opened up, can spontaneously ignite and burn. That's why they can be dangerous. The other thing is, if your positive and negative wires connect and short or arc together, what you might notice is the cells will start to expand. So this whole thing will start to balloon up. If that happens, put it somewhere outside as quickly as possible and away from people. It may actually explode. That's why these things can, if not handled properly, be dangerous. Now, there is a little symbol on the sticker here with a cross through a bin. Do not ever throw batteries in your rubbish bin. It is the easiest way to cause a fire for exactly those reasons. If it gets pierced or something happens, get rid of it and dispose of it properly. Put it somewhere safe so if it does light up and whatnot, you can look after it and it won't injure anyone. The other thing is, when you're charging these things, make sure you check them, that they're good. Same when you go to use them for the exact same reasons. Don't try and be careful with these wires. Make sure you don't pierce them or rip the connections and whatnot, because if it shorts, it can also light up. The other thing is, when you're charging it, make sure you're always present. Now, you don't have to be standing there watching them. Obviously, that's a bit silly. However, make sure you're there to react. If these are damaged inside and you don't know it and they start catching fire when they're charging, it can lead to houses burning down. It has happened in the past, not with these, but with other batteries that people were charging. So don't go charging them and go to bed. Don't go charging them and then leave the house for a couple of hours. Only charge them when you're around, so then you can react if they do catch fire. If they do catch fire, it's an electric fire, so don't use water to try and put it out. You're only going to make the situation worse. Try and use either CO2 or the foam, dry powder stuff. So if you have one of those extinguishers, great. I would recommend charging them in the garage somewhere and away from other things. Again, make sure you're there to react if something happens. I cannot stress that enough. A lot of people have been injured with battery fires over the past. Alright, so that's enough about the battery. Let's get on to the gels. Alright, the gels you get, they're just standard old gels. They're nothing special, so in this case they're blue. Again, this came out of the ACR. Now, these gels they're doable, usable for just having fun and whatnot. When you start getting into skirmishes and playing games, if that's the way you go with it, like I do, you're going to find that these things are very limited, especially if you do end up doing any modifications to the blaster. We'll just ignore the fact it tells us not to do that for now, because the standard gels are quite soft and they will burst quite easily. So a common upgrade that people do, not really an upgrade, but something they do, because not only will these run out pretty quickly when you start shooting a lot, but what you can do is you source yourself some extra ammo which is already hardened. So these are STD hardened whites, commonly referred to as Milkies. So you can get these. Normally speaking, most ammo containers you buy, you'll get 10,000 rounds, and they're normally, I think, like $3 to $5 from most retailers. These things are awesome, and if you're only using something like this is going to last you a while. I would still recommend getting a fair few of these if you know you're going to play a lot, but that's a me thing, because obviously I do it for YouTube. Now, these are fairly straightforward. If you buy them off of most Aussie retailers, you'll find that they put them in their own packaging. It's the same basic gel. Now, they're perfectly usable, perfectly suitable. They're great. I use these quite a bit. I also like the hardened oranges as well. That's personal preference. You will find that different coloured gels work better in different blasters. So, believe it or not, my old G36 loved the hardened oranges. Didn't really like the Milkies as much. The reason is that the gels actually grow to different sizes when they grow. I'll leave a link to a video that Loguido did on his channel where he actually measured them and and a bit of testing with them to show you the differences there if you're interested in looking into that further. Milkies generally are the smallest. They run well in pretty much anything, especially modified blasters. Usually, not always, just usually. So you might think, okay, I've got myself some gels. What am I going to do now? I'm not going to use these as an example because you won't see them on the backdrop. So I'll use these crappy blue ones. So, this looks like a condom wrapper, doesn't it? Guess I'm getting lucky tonight. He says while having a pack of white gels just there. Alright, let's move on. So, pretty straightforward. Open them up. Now, when you first get them, oh, there's a couple goes everywhere. They are these tiny little things there. They're actually semi-fluorescent. Now, this on its own, no good. You need to grow them, as it's called, or prepare them, however you want to version. Now, that is put it in a container full of water, and then leave them for about 4 hours, and they will grow to their full size. Now, the reason I say about 4 hours is what you'll notice when you put them in a container with water, after about half an hour to an hour, you'll notice that they start growing to what looks like close to full size. And that full size is somewhere around about 7mm diameter. Usually they're a touch over that, depending on which colour they are, like I mentioned before. Now, don't go using them straight away because they'll just turn to mush instantly. So don't do it. You need to let them sit for 3 to 4 hours minimum. And in fact, you can use some silicone sprays in order to help lubricate the barrels as you fire. I don't tend to do that. In fact, I also use cold water because they do seem to come a little bit harder out of it when you use cold water as opposed to hot water. Now, Ozgel, which are one of the biggest suppliers of gel ammo in the country at the moment, they actually, whenever you buy any ammo off them, they give you a card with all these basic little bits of info. Only try and grow them in water. Don't try and grow them in anything else. Believe it or not, a lot of people have tried everything to make these act differently. The basic answer is it'll just suck the water out of whatever you put it in. So, simple as that. Rule of thumb, 10,000 pack of Milkies will fill a 3-litre milk container, is what I've been told. Generally speaking, I grow them about 5,000 at a time, unless I know I'm going to use the M249, in which case I'll grow them about 10,000 at a time in a massive cooking bowl, which you can pick up for a couple of dollars. So, I definitely advise doing that. Right. What do they look like when they're fully grown? Well, my festive speed loader. When they're fully grown, now this I will show you with Milkies because it's what I had fully grown available. That's what they look like. So they go from that to that over the course of 3 to 4 hours. Now, you might think, how hard are they? Well, I'll grab one, assuming I can, and I'll squish it. So it's taking a bit of force, there it goes. And that's what it results in. Now, once this hits the dirt, it just dehydrates and shatters and goes back, and it's not an issue anymore. So that's all that you're basically shooting, pretty much. I'll just put these back. You never know, I might need them. Girlfriend gets home soon. I wouldn't do that. Or would I? I'm going to leave that unanswered. So, speed loader, most shops sell these for $10 to $15 each. You don't need to spend that much on this particular type of bottle. Usually people use 600 to 700ml drink bottles initially, or big bottles like I said, milk bottles, containers. There's various options. I bought a 2-litre juice jug from Woolies with a little turn cap, and it was perfect. I've just transferred over this because I happen to have 2 of them. So I use them for the M249s. I might actually put that back down there. Don't need them at all. I know some places and some people drill holes in the bottom so water drains out. I prefer to not do that for my own reasons, mainly because then the gels will actually start shrinking over time. So over the course of a day, say in and out of skirmishes, they could start going smaller. Causes a few other issues. Alright, next thing we'll get on to, and it'll be the last thing for this video, and that is maintenance on your blaster. Believe it or not, it's very little. It is almost nothing. The biggest thing is the battery. Obviously you need to make sure you charge it every time you go to use it. It goes in. Now in this case you have an on-off switch there, but they're all set up slightly differently. The blaster itself requires minimal maintenance. Over long term, especially if you are doing any upgrades or any work to it, you are going to need to grease it, clean it out, clean out the gearbox and whatnot, put some more grease in it as well as the cylinder and pistons. However, it's not exactly a requirement because they run pretty well for a while on their own. The main thing that you're going to be using doing any maintenance on will be your magazine, and that is after you finish using it, make sure you get all of the gels that are still in all of them out. So there's a couple of dried up ones there because they do test firing from the factory. You can still hit it, tap it around. Keep in mind that the front feed tube is still going to be full of gels. In this case, there's no easy way to pull back the little stopper that you can just see in there. So usually a small screwdriver, you open it up, tip it up, they all fall out. And that's pretty much it. That is the maintenance on your blaster, day to day. I recommend doing that after each game day with every mag that you've used, and you'll be fine. So that's all the basic information on how you need to, or how you can run one of these, what you get out of the box, sort of basic initial stuff I'd recommend getting, like a charger, and the fact you're going to need some more ammo, how to grow it. If you've got any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. Happy to have a chat about that. And the next video I'm looking at doing will be about the eye protection, otherwise referred to as eye pro by certain people of whom I'm not one. So we'll move on from that. Otherwise, happy blasting. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think below. I'll see you on the next one.